Welcome to the Wonk podcast. This week's guest is First AD/Unit Production Manager Mike Livanos, who's worked on Workaholics, key&peele, A.P Bio, and the Wonk production Rage and Beauty. Enjoy. First time I ever met you or heard of you.
Yep.
Was that, do you remember this?
I remember what I think it is.
The house party?
Yeah.
And you jumped off a roof with a sword. I think the sword was on fire.
Probably. This is great.
And so there was two stories that happened. I passed out in the alley.
I remember that.
And you, so like we were like two opposite ends of the spectrum. I was in Sleepy Town, and people were taking pictures with me laying down, and you were putting on a show.
Yeah, I did. That was jumping off the Workaholics roof. So
yeah.
that was the Workaholics roof was in the zeitgeist at the time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
yeah. With it was Blake had that katana blade, which I think came out because Isaac, the guy's manager, had sent them. That was, by the way, I think the night we wrapped Workaholics season 1.
Yes.
Yeah, they were all still people that nobody knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, right. And
with a little bit of money now.
with a little, just enough of that,
Enough.
first season cable money to
Yeah.
it was big shot. But we did a whole season of television. That was fun.
Huge.
And so Isaac, the manager, had sent a case of champagne or something. And I remember, so I asked Blake, I had that party trick that, is basically a basic Instagram party trick by now. But at the time, it still seemed special to open a champagne bottle with a sword or a blade of something. So I said, anybody have a sword? Or, Blake pulled out the katana blade, and I began opening all the champagne bottles with the katana blade. And then that turned into things being, there's sure as a bonfire or something, sticks or swords on fire and jumping off the roof. And it was a good time. I got some good hot tub time in with you, I remember, before you passed out on the driveway.
Yeah, we hung out. Well, you poured champagne down my throat while I was in the jacuzzi. I might have been asleep. I might have been weekend at Bernie's. It
might have been what drove you to falling asleep in the driveway.
Yeah.
But I never forgot you, even if I didn't see you for a while after that. I mean, it was a connection.
There was definitely a connection because I remember Kyle was like, "Man, you were crazy, but man, Livanos was nuts." And I'm like,
You were number 2.
I was number 2. I'm like, I'm number 2, man. Like I got that drunk for nothing.
I've always had this theory that as long as you're not the worst at the party or the most drunk, you're safe, right?
Yeah.
It was like at a rap party, way back in the day, and I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I was really young and just worried I was going to ruin everything. And then somebody from the crew had gotten really drunk and was having a good time and jokingly slapped that producer in the face at the party. And that was deemed much worse than what I did. And so nobody gave me shit or ever remembered that I was weird or drunk at the party at all. Because you just have to be number 2. As long as you're not the most drunk guy at the party, you're always safe.
Congratulations.
You can do nothing wrong. Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's a good lesson.
Well, he's not.
Everybody
in the podcast world, he's not letting you do murder. It's not the purge.
Murder, as long as somebody doesn't do
double murder.
Double murder. Yeah, you're okay. You're scot free.
Yeah, that's dope.
I remember that night. In fact, the next morning, the next day was the Workaholics rap party, and Blake. And this is when I knew Blake had the biggest heart of anybody. He showed up at that rap party with a champagne cork with a ring of glass still intact around it, and it had a military dog tag strapped around it. It was made into a necklace, and he presented it to me as a gift at the actual rap party the next night.
So he got that made after you cut it. He got that made? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he went and made it. He went and crafted the next day.
Oh my God.
And it was we were out, celebrating finishing the season, and all that happened, we were up until all hours, and the next day the rap party was at, 6 p.m. or something, and at some point in between there, he prioritized creating this gift for me.
That's gorgeous.
So I will have it forever, but it was just fantastic. I was like, oh, this dude's for real gold.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Did you get this hardcore attitude from rugby? Or where did
hardcore attitude. Yeah. I mean, rugby was a big informative thing in my life. I think it was like informed like that, I was a leader among the club, and it was sort of like just wrangling a bunch of sort of like creative or boisterous or intense people and sort of like leading them into a charge or, just wrangling them generally with various levels of, misbehave or talent or whatever. And I guess that applies, but that was sort of, I'm sure it has something to do with it.
I mean, it has to.
Yeah, probably.
Unit production managers and first ADs. First ADs talk more than the directors, right?
Yeah, I would think so. The first ADs,
when I was on set, that's talk. When I was on set, it was like the director whispers in your ear, and then you just yell at everybody and says,
it's sort of
make it happen.
It's sort of a ring. Yeah, it's a ringleader. It's I had this conversation, and we can name drop, right? Can I name drop to make myself sound cool? Is that what we're here for?
I encourage it.
Okay, great. So I was having a conversation with Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh.
Wow.
The conversation was, we were facilitated with him and producer Jason Sudeikis. Have you heard of him? He's a producer.
I have.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you might have. And we were talking about comparing players or positions on a football field on a movie set. And Sudeikis and Harbaugh had agreed previously before they brought me into the conversation that, the first AD is really like the quarterback.
Yes.
And the director is the coach.
Yes.
Really. So the first AD is sort of like running plays and passing the ball and everything. And I guess like the people that score touchdowns are actors or something. And, grips are like a pulling guard. I don't know. There's something to that, right? That immediately made Jim Harbaugh click and understand how a TV set worked.
Yes.
Or knew who he needed to go to and what his attitude, knew the sort of general attitudes and hierarchy of the people. So first AD is definitely like a field general.
Is the quarterback. I had the same thought, yes.
He's the quarterback, and it's sort of like the one who has to sort of implement the on-the-field plan.
Yeah.
And my goal in times when I've been first AD on set is sort of like, you want to make everything happen so that the director can remain calm and focused and have the specific conversations and thoughts that he needs to have with actors, with the director of photography. And if you can learn his plan and prep, help him form the plan, then as a first AD, you can be the one driving everything because you're in his head or her head and you know everything that's going on, and you can allow them to focus on tone. And,
they could stay creative, and you're nuts and bolts,
and you're doing everything because you know what they want, and you're helping kind of drive the ship, and you're the main one on set who's interfacing with all the different department heads that are working. So like as a first AD, you have to know like what a key grip's responsible, how to delegate all this stuff, like a director, to make help the director achieve the vision.
And if like makeup needs a couple more hours, you have to call an audible and but you have to tell the coach, hey, makeup's taking a little bit longer.
We're gonna do something different, or we told them to rally, or maybe we're gonna go shoot this insert while they're doing this makeup change, and you sort of figure out the plans. I mean, what I like about it is the pressure of like making, decisions in the heat of battle is like the best moment as a first AD is when there's some crisis happening and people are going, well, we were going to do this. Now we got to do this. Now the airplanes are coming overhead and ruining the sound, and we're over here and this and that. And then the first AD gets to be the guy who goes, everybody stop, hold on. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to solve it. We're changing. We're going in this direction. And when you can have the ear and the confidence of the crew that you've built up over time to sort of stop everybody in their tracks and lead them, in the new direction towards the same goal, is rewarding. It's cool. It's fun.
And you just do that without the director saying it. It's just like, okay, everybody's going crazy. Let me step in. And then,
if you have a certain relationship with the director, then you can kind of step in because you know where you got to go to achieve the goal. And all different directors are different. Some directors like to be a big, voice. You have to know no two jobs are the same, no two directors are the same. So you have to kind of get in their head and know how much they want to be the voice. And some directors want you to be their voice in, all respects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did the love for film and when did it move from Did it move from sports to film, or was film going along with sports?
I mean, the sports was kind of limited to rugby exclusive by the time I was in college. It was like I focused almost all my energy towards like being part of that program, and sort of school fell a little bit by the wayside. But I went to school in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. So going to the University of Michigan, there was a film program, and I remember having one buddy that I played rugby with that was 4 years older than me. His name was Scotty, and he was a film major. And growing up in Michigan, it seemed like the most flowery, lofty BS thing, right? And sort of, he was the first person I knew that I took seriously that was a film major, because it was just that sort of like Midwestern. You grow up blue collar, and then you try to go to business school or engineering school and figure out where you can go get your job and all that. And so even with him as an influence, I still didn't quite have the guts to say I want to be a film major. I sort of just floated through and focused my energy on rugby, which I was passionate about, and organizing, which really, developed, I'm sure, the skills like we talked about. But eventually, when I was kind of floating away in the land of majoring in communications, I sort of finally said to myself, like a little too late in the game, like, no, you actually are interested in film and television. Why don't you, study it? And I started taking film classes and sort of specialized my communications degree in film, but I still didn't do well or try hard in the classes, and I failed in a lot of my group assignments, and kind of helped make one good movie, and then didn't do great really at all in any of the film classes, and really didn't even apply myself. I still sort of carried that attitude of film isn't a real thing you can do even after college.
The hobby.
Yeah, and part of it was I was afraid and didn't want to leave the state of Michigan. I kind of liked it there. I was like a homebody. I loved everything about being close to family and the friends I grew up with, like a lot of people do. And so I thought to do it, you would have to move far away, move to LA, and I wasn't interested in that. So I said, well, I'm not interested in moving far away. I'm not interested in film. I'll just, do something else,
Yeah.
So for a while, I kind of floated through. I went into business with my dad. My dad's a painting contractor, and I worked for him. I learned.
This is after college?
This is after college, yeah. I worked for him. I became an estimator, a project manager, and you can start seeing the connecting themes. I learned about numbers and what double time and pay hours and fringe
Yeah.
and scheduling and managing people and crews and contracts and subcontracts and all this stuff that I never, thought I would apply at the time anywhere but there. And he moved me out to Las Vegas, where he had opened an auxiliary office for his company. And in Las Vegas, my life was still centered around rugby. I played men's club rugby, where we traveled around the country, but mostly the Southwest United States, to play in the SoCal Rugby League. And that was sort of that was my outlet still then, as a young 20-something. And I fell in love with Southern California from going to play rugby in Southern California. Mm-hmm. So eventually, at some point, I burned out on working in the painting contracting business, and burned out on the idea of Las Vegas, but also didn't want to return back to Michigan and feel like, I moved away, but then I failed. So at that point, I kind of jumped on, I love Southern California. Here's my opportunity. And I kind of just jumped, and I said, I'm going to move to Southern California. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but
wow,
I just got to go.
Wow. And so now you're in Southern California by yourself?
By myself.
No family, no girlfriend, no anything, just...
Nope. My homie Paul Washburn lived in San Diego. I liked San Diego, and I sort of settled in there in the short term. I literally knew one other person in San Diego, which is a friend of mine named Meredith, that was my cousin's roommate's sister, that I used to hang out with and buddy around with in college a little bit. And my buddy Paul Washburn, who I'm still friends with and work with to this day. And he was always the encouraging friend that do whatever you want to do. And he said, I'm working on this micro budget independent film. You should just come out and do it. And I just went and worked on this film for, 30 days for
What was your title?
It's funny. My title eventually was second assistant director, but I didn't do anything that a second assistant director really does. I just sort of dove into the fray and just enjoyed being around cameras and people in the process and learning the process of filmmaking. It was sort of like, it was a start. It was like a love. And I saved up a little money. It was a love. And it immediately, I guess, to tie it together, it was sort of that project management and sort of like personnel wrangling, budgeting, scheduling world that I saw all business through that lens, because that's what I knew.
You saw that you could
budget.
You saw that your talents could actually make a difference.
I didn't. I just went at it that way because that's what I knew how to do. So consciously, I didn't even know that I was applying skills that I had. I was just doing that, and that was what I was comfortable with and good at.
That's awesome. So you got the love from that.
Yes.
And then, so what was your plan to get a job after that job?
I was gonna try to make it and get a job or get a paying job.
Any paying job, or did you want it to have to be film?
I wanted it to be film. I sort of had this idea that maybe I would do something else, or maybe I would work in, I loved music, or like, oh, maybe I'll get a job at a bar. I had like bar management on my resume, so I had maybe I'll work at a bar that has concerts or something, or there was other things, but really I wanted to do like film. I was like, I think I'm in it. I can do this. And it's just, I didn't know anybody. I knew nobody. And I was in San Diego. I wasn't even in LA at the time. So it was sort of like, you just, I think I tell people a lot, like, it's not just one thing or one person. It's sort of like the combination of everything that leads you where you're going, but it's also just one thing at a time. It's like the one person on this job goes, hey, I know this other job we're doing, up in the woods in Big Bear, and like maybe come work and we'll give you like $50 a day and come shoot these nights or something, which is like equated to like $2 an hour or something.
You got to find the domino.
Yeah. And it's a total domino effect.
Yeah.
And it's just one thing to another. So like in a way, every single person who gave you anything is responsible for all of your success. Uh-huh. Every single person, and that's it sort of feels like that domino where it started for me, like go work in the woods and make $50,
So was that the next one? So
that was the next one, an independent film where I was literally making, $50 a day.
And who'd you meet?
Illegal.
Who'd you meet from that?
That one was, who did I meet from that one? I worked with like the same sound guy that I worked on the first movie. I worked with a producer. I worked with a couple other people, and then like, somebody who worked as like an electric on that one. My buddy Paul, who I was telling you about, kind of knew him, and they recommended me for a production assistant job on a TV show after that called Veronica Mars.
Dope. You PA'd on Veronica Mars.
I PA'd on Veronica Mars.
Dope.
And I was a terrible PA. The worst.
Why?
I thought I was good and I wasn't. I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't. But somebody sort of recommended me, got in the way. I don't know why they hired me, but they hired me, and they were in season 2 already. So I, jumped into the fray, and then I ended up, I lasted about 2 or 3 weeks and I got fired. And I got fired, I think, well, besides being a terrible PA and probably not having a good attitude, I was arguing contract with the production manager and accountant.
Arguing your contract.
Yeah, I had some contract and they weren't paying the PAs right based on the guaranteed hours and all this. And I kind of just ran the numbers on the back of the envelope. I'm like, this is wrong. You're not paying people right. And this is I'm really disparaging Veronica Mars right now, but I guess
they're not on anymore, right?
No, they're coming back, right?
Oh.
We love Veronica Mars. We love Kristen Bell. I thought she was cool. She was from Michigan.
We love them.
It's funny.
But pay me.
Something happened, and it was I was making 50 cents an hour less than I should have after 12 hours. Anyway, I argued. The next day, all new contracts came for all the PAs, and they made all the PAs sign new contracts that applied what they were, the wrong thing. And I said, why would I sign a contract when I already signed a contract? That's not something you say, why would I sign this contract that gets me paid less when I already signed this contract? And so, of course, they fired me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so Kristen Bell suggested you for another job.
No, it was that second AD on that job. His name's James. Yeah, his name is James. And he recommended me for some other job, and then it was like that. It's just the domino. Then
But
the
not a
domino
PA though.
He recommended me as a PA, and then it was like a pilot, and then the producer liked me, and then the producer gave me a chance as a non-union second AD, and then that job then led to the other one, and then suddenly I got really lucky and became like a union second AD, and then, and then like sometime after I was a union second AD, I actually started knowing what I was doing as a second AD, and just kind of went from there. But there were still some poor years after that, just trying to string it together. And of course, like, then it was only about, a year or two later, then I moved to LA, and then I was, sort of struggling through there a little bit. But, I kept, just trying to chip away and struggle as a second AD for a while.
Yeah.
Very poor in LA for a while.
Yeah. What does a second AD do?
Second AD,
As opposed to a first AD?
a second AD is sort of like the implementing the plan for the future. So the first AD sort of like preps with the director and makes the schedule and creates all that. And the second AD sort of takes all the nuances of the schedule and information and spreads the information to everybody. So like, all right, this schedule, the first AD, all these actors work this day. I'm going to tell the actors what scenes they're doing what day. I'm going to talk to the grips about the equipment they need to bring, and the camera guys, and tell everybody what time the call is going to be and where things are going to be. And it's basically executing the plan for the future that the first AD has created. And I think it's the hardest job on set. I don't think there's any job more difficult to stay on top of than a second AD.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
Because you have to talk. You are the megaphone.
Oh, when you're the first AD, life is good. You just make decisions with the director, and they could be good decisions or bad decisions, and then the second AD has to deal with all the fallout. Wow. You can say one thing like, "We're going to do this scene tomorrow, okay?" And the second AD has to make 57 phone calls and send out a bunch of emails and talk to every single person and make that plan happen. Actually execute the plan.
Yeah. Damn. Who was your favorite first AD to work with while you were second ADing?
It's got to be John O'Rourke.
Jono.
He's just such a unique personality and such a go-getter and the hardest worker I've ever known. It was sort of one of those things where, like, Jono was the type of first AD where if nobody else on the crew showed up, like there was a snowstorm and nobody showed up, Jono would still get the day done doing everyone else's job. Like, he'd put the whole show on his back, and he's just a guy who would, never stop working. And he's got a great attitude. He's a really fun guy. Yeah, I like him a lot. Traveled together, got a lot of good breaks, had some good runs with him too.
Yeah, different shows. Went from show to show with him?
Different shows. I met him on a show in Michigan when I was working in Michigan, just trying to work on bigger and better shows. Kind of bounced away from LA for a little bit and met Jono there, and then just worked on him with one show. He came in, first AD got fired on a show. I thought I would get fired too, but then they brought in a new first AD and I ended up staying, and it was Jono. So about shortly after that, and I think that it was about 2010, so a few months later, I had gotten a call from a homie of mine named Bill, and Billy Krebs said to me, my homie, you remember Anders, right? Yeah, Anders, your writing buddy. He got a show. You're not going to believe it. What? What do you mean he got a show? Well, he's like acting on a show, and he's producing it, and he's writing it, and I couldn't believe it. And, Anders is somebody that I hung out with a bit casually, because Bill was a close friend of mine, and they were always writing together. Bill and Anders were just, always grinding and just writing all the time, trying to make it. And he said, call up Anders, or I forget if Anders called me or he told me to, but Bill kind of linked me up with Anders, and Anders kind of got me in the door to meet the producer of Workaholics about working on Workaholics. Now, what happened to me at that time was I wasn't qualified to be a first AD yet, and they were looking to hire a first AD. So typically, I was sort of out of luck because I was a second AD, and you can't really just hire a second AD.
Yeah.
So I said, I knew my homie Jono had worked on a Comedy Central show, the Sarah Silverman show. So I said to the producer, like, look, I know I'm not qualified to be the first AD, even though I'd done some first AD work before. I said, but I know this guy, Jono. And so I got Jono the interview over there. And what ends up happening is, by whatever luck, Jono gets the job. And so he calls me up, and I'm on a hiatus on a show that I'm first ADing in Michigan at the time. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, we had settled into an apartment. My stuff in LA was in storage. I was looking for an excuse to get back to LA. But I was stuck in this hole of just working in Michigan a little bit at the time. And Jono said, can you come in and start Monday? And it was Friday night. And I just said, yeah,
in Michigan, you're saying,
I'm in
yes.
Michigan. I said, yeah, let's do it. And it was a season of television, which was what I needed to sort of like jump back into LA. And, I just sort of talked to the producer on the phone and was like, oh yeah, I'm a Michigan guy. I'm an LA guy. I'm both, and just didn't even tell him where I was. He said, well, why don't you come in and start, Monday? And it was like, 8 p.m. Friday, Michigan time. So 5 p.m. LA. And I had an event like the next night, Saturday, with a rugby movie that I had made with some friends. And then that Sunday morning, I just got on a plane and flew to LA. And then
and we're there for what, 10 weeks?
And started Workaholics.
That's beautiful.
No, I just told my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I just said, pack up the stuff and start driving. I'll find a place for us to settle back in LA, because it was sort of, we got together when I was working in Michigan, and I was sort of like pseudo, homeless at the time.
Yeah.
Not, really like privileged white guy homeless.
Yeah.
Like staying at my parents' place or her parents' place, and, like
I've been homeless for 5 years, brother.
Subletting my LA place, like the most privileged form that I could describe of the homeless. But, she drove out like a champion, towing a trailer of our stuff. And, I started Workaholics, and that's really what got me sort of like back into the LA world after I'd been away for the better part of a year and a half. And kind of that's, where I met those guys, and, another domino effect, like a couple times hanging out with Anders. My buddy Bill introduced me, and Anders just wanting to get people that he knew and was familiar with, that I imagined that he just thought were good people that were on his side, to get into the fold. And then, walked into the office and met Kyle and the rest of the boys.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So now you're on Workaholics.
Right.
Okay. And you do the first season. You're just second AD the whole first season?
The whole first season, yeah.
All right. When did you actually become a first AD?
Well, I was, looking for opportunity to advance, and they were mostly shooting with just one first AD, I think, the first 2 seasons, with like maybe mostly just one first AD.
Just Jono?
Typically on a show, you rotate. If you're in an episodic, you rotate between first ADs. But if there's enough hiatuses or you block episodes together, you can do it with one.
Well, because they're switching directors too, right?
Yes. So you need as a first AD, you need to prep with your director and then go shoot with your director.
But so Jono was prepping with different directors?
Yeah, back and forth. But a lot of them was Kyle and Kyle Newacek, and then there was one other guy, Chris Koch, who was there as a consulting producer. And so Jono was doing all the heavy lifting, and we were there in about the 3rd season, maybe, when they started going to true rotating. I think it was, I think I was just at a party, and Kyle was like, you ready to step up or what? And then I was like, yeah, bud, I am, hoping you'd asked. And then Blake jumped off a roof and broke his back.
Was it the same party?
I'm pretty sure, probably that party.
Wow.
But it was Kyle always had faith in me, and Kyle's the kind of guy who loved seeing advancing people from within, and giving people shots, and he gave me a lot of them, including that one.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So from first AD, you go to unit production manager.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's can be, it's a typical and not typical progression. For me, I think I was interested in it because it was like a higher position and more money and closer to just a higher position, like closer to being like a real producer and all that. Before I went on that path, I tested the waters when Kyle was messing around at the end of the season and getting together a pilot presentation, and I said, well, just let me produce that for you. You know,
Was it Rage and Beauty?
it was Rage and Beauty, but you know that, right?
Yeah.
So
That was your first unit production?
that was I mean, I used to sort of produce music videos and like small independent commercials like back in the day when I was in San Diego, but then I kind of got into the AD game. And then when Rage and Beauty came along, you know, I saw that opportunity to sort of jump in and say like, let me try my hand at this and dealing with the budget and everything else. And I offered it up to Kyle and he said, yeah, sure. And let me jump in. And so that was like my first, you know, like foray narrative into being like a UPM producer. So I jumped into that, which was, I mean, what an experience.
Yeah.
I'm such a fan of Rage and Beauty, of course.
Hell yeah.
And had a blast doing it. Sort of, you know, did my best, and I thought, you know, we all kind of did a good job on that, and it was really fun and ended up being a great experience for a lot of reasons. And I think it sort of, it opened the door and gave me some confidence in that. It was like kind of after that, you know, I got my first crack at being a UPM, you know, from a couple different people, but the main one was, you know, like, again, it was just the guys and, you know, their manager, Isaac, who's a producer, also just said, you know, kind of, what do you want to do next? What are you interested in? I expressed some interest. And then again, on Workaholics, it was internal advancement. You know, there was a position open up and they were willing to give somebody who hadn't really done it a shot. We had a new producer that season too. So it was sort of like bring someone from the inside who knows the show and the guys and everything, and bring an outsider with a lot of experience, and they'll be a good team. And so they gave me a shot, and so it was season 5. Then I was the unit production manager at Workaholics. So
that's
it
awesome.
felt like a rapid advancement, you know, with a bit of luck, like everything else. But I just tried to lean into it and do my best, and then, you know, since then, I've just been working as a first AD and a UPM, but really just more and more as a UPM as time goes on. But, you know, I mean, Workaholics, I can see all those sort of milestones is where I got big breaks, and it was because, you know, those guys, they did like to, you know, advance people and give people shots, and, you know, that's how I became a UPM.
That's beautiful, man. That's great.
You really think it's beautiful. I love it.
I do. Well,
I know I do.
I'm part of it too.
Hey, you are,
That's
man.
dope,
You're a cornerstone of the story, man. You know it.
That's dope. So, you and Jono went to Key and Peele, and this was what you were kind of doing while Workaholics was going on?
Yeah, it was sort of happening concurrently. I mean, we got that break. The producer of Workaholics at the time was also, you know, had worked with Jordan and Keegan on Mad TV and stuff. So he got the pilot and brought Jono and I over, and we did Key and Peele, the pilot, and then we ended up doing, you know, every season of Key and Peele, which was like, I had no idea what that was going to be, of course. I mean, all I knew is I'm on set doing these, you know, with these sketches, and it's just like, you know, fall over funny as you're doing it. And, but, you know, the way it took off was unbelievable. It was like viral, you know.
Yeah.
It was viral in a way that was unique at the time, because it was like, it was before they really realized how to properly integrate, you know, the sketch, you know, it was the television, the sketches on the internet, and they were getting like millions and millions of hits of the stuff they posted on the internet. And the TV show was like doing okay, but everybody knew who Key and Peele was.
Yeah.
And it was all because it was like, they were still developing on, you know, how to market themselves through, you know, posting on the web and what to post, what to not, how to get people to access it. So it was like a successful show. And I don't know if it was really successful on TV or if it was just like in the, you know, out there in the world and, you know, a cult hit, or I don't really know what it was. I just know like people are still saying AA Ron and, you know,
Yeah.
all this stuff, all that crazy stuff is just, you know, all happened. But like, you know, we got to be a part of it. And that was a very unique show because it was also a boot camp of different types of filmmaking, which I always tell people is fascinating. Like you're doing a zombie movie in the morning and you're doing a Western in the afternoon, and you're changing the same extras to be in both, you know, sketches. And so like if people will say like, you know, have you ever done, you know, a war movie? And you're like, well, I know how to do, war movies because we did like this, scene in the trenches or with a sketch on Key and Peele or whatever. So you learn how to make all different types of shows.
Yeah. Is that how you got your Western?
Oh, Quick Draw?
Yeah.
Quick Draw with a little Hulu show. That was a lot of fun. That was, Nancy Howard and John Lair are really funny people, and they do a lot of like improv-based shows. I got that actually, Domino Effect. I got that from the producer that ended up producing most of the seasons of Key and Peele. Brought me over there to first AD at the time, and I shot that out at Paramount Ranch, and that was fun. Got to do a Western, horses, guns.
That's dope.
All types of shows.
So we keep talking about the domino. When
Yeah.
do you start looking for the domino? Because you know a show's coming to an end, or like, hey, this is our last season. If there's 4 more episodes left, I need to work next year. When do you start?
For me, part of it is there is a lot to say about path of least resistance and bird in hand, especially when it relates to working with good people that you trust, people that you like, or stuff that you know is going to be good. It has to be okay. So like, there's 2 or 3. The old saying like, you need it to be good or fast or cheap or something.
Yeah,
that,
it can't be all 3. So
I have another world of that. Like, you can do a project if it's got to be good people. You got to know it's going to be a quality project and do well, or you got to get paid. And if it's 2 of those 3, you're styling.
Yeah.
And if it's all 3, you know it's going to be great. And if it's one of those 3 and it's the bird in hand, great. So a lot of it is like path of least resistance. And, and part of what people, do how do I get started? What do I do? Or like, what's my path to X? And, the thing I always say is there's no same path to director, no same path to writer. Everybody kind of goes a different way, and it's a weave. And if the dominoes keep falling, if you keep moving up and advancing and taking one opportunity that's better than the last, or that's equal to with better people or whatever, your reputation will precede you. It's a reputation-based industry. So if you work hard and you're honest and you're not a jerk, it truly gets you pretty far, I think. I don't know if I've done, and there's always a little bit of luck, but I really think that's it. I think it's, people pour their hearts into it and stick it out. And, you meet the right people along the way. So, you're always sort of looking, even when you're in the middle of a project or just still starting a project. But the other thing is, you got to ride somebody's coattails. When Jono, I was telling you about, I rode his coattails for a long time. You know why? Jono had like 3 kids. He's got to feed a family. He's going to get another job. He gets another job, I'm going to get another job.
Yeah.
So you got someone in front of you that's as hungry or hungrier than you, you're going to get a job. So find somebody and ride their coattails. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
I had somebody ride my coattails for a little while. I rode people coattails more than my coattails have been ridden. So, I think that's sort of what happens. And then you don't have to worry. Then you get a little less scared. You don't have to worry as much about finding the next job because you're just going to ride with somebody. If you're a second AD and they're a first AD, if they're a, costume supervisor and you're a costumer, if you're an assistant editor, if you're a writer's assistant and you find a writer that can get you in a room, whatever it is, ride it out for a minute. You get a break. People do like to promote from within, especially if you're on something that becomes successful. You see writer's assistants, eventually they get a script. At the end of the 2nd season, you get to split a script with the script coordinator. You get in the WGA, you get a writer's fee. And because you're in there and they realize you're funny because you kind of just stayed in your lane, played it cool, and then you had your time to pitch a joke. You pitched a funny joke. Everyone laughed. Now I'm, pretending I know what it's like in a writer's room, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, people, you see it happen all the time,
Yeah. That's dope, man.
Yeah.
So what was the domino? Let's keep going with the timeline. That was fucking beautiful, though, by the way. Let's keep going with the timeline. So how did you get to... Was it Champions first or AP Bio?
Champions, I got into, I knew some people that were working on it in the AD department. Mm-hmm. And, wouldn't you know, Anders Holm was the star of the show. So when they needed a first AD to fill in, and Anders recommends you to Mindy and Mindy calls the producer, then you get a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend like it's more complicated than that.
That's pretty easy.
But I know the job. I feel like I can do the job, so I came in and first did an episode of there. AP Bio is a little bit different of a thing for me. AP Bio is in its second season. We're just shooting it now.
Did you do the first season?
I did not do the first season, and AP Bio is, I mean, to be honest, and it might border on sounding, self-congratulatory or something, but like that one, I feel like, the producer I've been working with a lot, took a break, and this is just one that I answered the phone, and somebody had recommended me, probably a UPM who couldn't do the job, and then another, and then like I came in and the DP knew me from another show and was like, oh, that guy's cool, and then and then I walked in a meeting, and the set decorator that was in there for an interview said, oh, I know this guy, he's awesome. It was sort of just like the perfect storm of, I walked into this office of this producer who probably could have hired a UPM with, more experience than me, or a different type of person, or whoever she wanted to hire. But I think I just got lucky, and, like people that I knew from working with just happened to kind of know her and know my name. So she said, oh, I'm interviewing him. And then somebody says a good thing about you. And then I got the job.
That's dope.
And then it's a network show. So it's I guess it's the biggest show budget wise that I've worked on. And, but don't tell anybody, but sometimes that makes it easier.
Yeah.
When you got the money, right? You have the money to do a show, right?
Uh-huh.
You have the resources, you have a high level of professionals, and,
is that the biggest difference between cable and network? Just easier, or?
No, I could back myself into a corner, but in reality, I truly think that there's no real difference anymore between cable and network and television, because you've got the Netflix shows that are bigger budget than network shows. It's more like there's still like an old school clout with network that exists in reality a little bit, but it's a little more of like it's a network show. It still kind of carries a little bit of that clout, but it doesn't really matter anymore. Like what kids are watching, the people that they want to watch the show, the 17 to 25-year-olds or whatever it is, they don't know what network something's on. You tell them a show, they type it into
YouTube,
their machine, and it comes up, and whatever they do, right? And they don't know, and they probably watch it on their phone or something else too. So they don't know the difference if it's a web series or if it's on ABC or CBS or whatever. They don't know.
Or NBC, the one that you're on.
NBC, yeah, right. And so it is. I mean, like it's different and bigger, like because you're working for a major corporation, so they have a lot of good systems in place, and it actually makes, it makes things run smoother in a lot of ways. It's red tape for better or for worse, and as far as the show function, but it's it becomes. It operates generally, on a higher level because you've got sort of the corporate backing. The people have been doing it for years and have built a system and a handbook that's hundreds of pages thick, and the vendors that they want you to use that they've got to deal with already. And that's like the boring minutia of it. But like, yeah, it is. It's sort of like they have a system. They have the grinder that they put the shows through for better or for worse, but they know what they need to do to make them function and work. And a lot of times now, and I say this, my feeling is they sort of let the network shows kind of go and let the creatives just sort of do their thing more than they used to, because the precedent's been set by cable, by Netflix, by all these things. Like, if you just sort of step back and let the creative people do something, you're going to get a good product. If you try to step on it too much and note the heck out of it, it rarely makes it better. So I think that's unique about AP Bio. It's it's of the new era where it's a little bit more edgy. It doesn't feel like what I thought a network comedy feels like in tone, and I think they just kind of let the creative people do the job. And I love working for NBC Universal Television.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, that's dope. Shout out to Nick Madrude, by the way, too.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, great camera operator.
Yeah, and Jason.
And Jason Wittenberg, first assistant cameraman. Deal with him a lot. We talk about money stuff.
Yeah, OCC alumni.
Yeah, is he really?
Fantastic. I used to make films with them in college.
I haven't brought you up with him yet. I didn't know. What do you think that would? I know, but what sort of clout do you think it would get? Is it going to get me?
Get you a high five.
Get me a high five.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are cool. Yeah, and they work for Blake. amazing cinematographer that I worked with years ago on one project at Comedy Central, and called Big Time in Hollywood, Florida. And Blake's fantastic, and he's got a great looking show going there, and got a great crew that that I'm kind of lucky to jump on board with. But yeah,
That's dope,
it's great.
man.
It's great over there.
Yeah. AP Bio's the pretty big domino, and hopefully it leads to another bigger domino.
Yeah, watch it, guys. It's on Thursday nights on NB. I don't know what night it's on. No.
Oh, whoa.
No. We'll
They
find
might be
out.
watching Will and Grace because of you now.
Yeah, right, Thursday nights at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
on NBC.
That's dope.
Wow. If people are interested in what I have to say about it, I'd be surprised and impressed. But you're interesting enough to.
No,
keep
this is
everybody-
this no unit production and fucking first AD and second AD. First production or first ADs are exactly what I thought, and the fact that Harbaugh said that, or you said that, who
Yeah,
said that?
Jim Harbaugh agreed
With Jason Sudeikis.
with Jason Sudeikis that the first AD is the quarterback of the
I
movie
had that
set.
same idea
Yeah.
when I was on set. It wasn't you; it was Jono.
Yeah,
When I was on Workaholics.
yeah.
I was like, yeah, he's running the show right now while Bill Belichick is over there at the monitor.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so funny. I had anxiety about becoming an AD when I took film classes at University of Michigan. It was really funny because they were describing like the positions on a film set, and it's actually really funny because my teacher at the time had said, okay, so first ADs, they do scheduling, they kind of run the set, but like, they help the director, but like, you got to be careful because if you're a really good first AD, you'll get stuck and you'll be a first AD for, your whole life and you'll never advance. And I was like, okay, yeah, you don't want to get stuck as a first AD and all this. And then I realized that a first AD is a pretty good career. I mean, people people do well. I mean, you can make money. You can. It's a incredibly exhilarating, fun job. And I sort of was like tarnished on it because some film professors said like you don't want to get stuck being a first AD, and then there's people that work their whole life and don't get lucky enough to advance to being a first AD. And I'm like, I'm lucky I got that far. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe and write a review. Also, check out our Instagram and YouTube for more dope content at Wonk Inc.